Say that you're a picky little bastard and you want a new phone, but you're a student like me. You don't want the SE. You don't want the A53 because it's too expensive to your liking. So you went and searched for S20 Ultra to find out that it's to your liking, yes, but to your wallet, it's not. Let's be fair to yourself, right? Do you have so much money to spend on it? And then your next appealing option is the Galaxy S8 to find out that most of them have screen burn-ins and most of them has big battery health problems, and they all have 1 year 1.5. Big disappointment until you find out that you have another option, which is to go with an older mid-range phone. And today I'll be reviewing the A30s in a long run and see if it still can be a daily driver for some. Now I'm not suggesting that you can totally use this. Yes, actually you can, but that is if you are a little bit patient, a little bit on the patient side anyway. So let's get started. I realize we haven't done this. Now so to start off, just a minute. Sorry, this little bastard decided to come in and annoy me. Alright, let's get it down. He just took my seat, guys. Okay, anyway, as I'm saying, to get started, this thing is launched alongside the Galaxy S10 series, which they are all stellar phones. Now my father did own the Galaxy S10e, which is a pretty amazing phone, but remember, you're on a tight budget, you're a student, you don't want a small screen phone, you don't want a 5.8-inch phone, and that's the only one they can buy. So your next best option is definitely this. So yeah, what does this offer comparing to your Galaxy S10 series? Number one, this is a mid-range phone, so it's definitely going to get less updates than the Galaxy S10 series, which is the reason why this thing got only up to Android 11, whereas the Galaxy S10 series got up to Android 12, and I believe that is its final major Android update, where Android 11 is the final one that this thing's gonna last to. So in theory, your phone has already been updated, but because you're on a tight budget, let me remind you of that once again. You have no choice but to use this. So okay, let's get to the straight point. Okay, long story short, this thing is still quite usable for everyday tasks, because if Android 4 still has many apps from the App Store still supporting it, I don't see why Android 11 have half of its App Store cut off, right? And thank God, everything is fully supported as it should. And let's go ahead and talk about the hardware about it. So as we discussed about the flagship and mid-range thing, of course this thing has the mid-range Exynos 7904, and compared to the Exynos 9820 or the Snapdragon 855, depending on your region, or I almost said religion again, S7 video, this thing can't hold a candle to, of course, its flagship counterpart, because this thing is a mid-range phone. Give it the mid-range respect that it deserves. Regardless of which flavor of the A30s you get, be it the lowest or the top decked out variant, it's still gonna surpass the S21, because you can just stick in a card and it just works. It just goes all the way up to 512 plus whatever storage variant you picked. Mine is the 64GB flavor one, and please do not use the 32GB one, it's terrible. If you can find the 128GB variant, it's hard to find, I know, but if you can, just do it. And then the next part about it is the battery. This is a 4000 milliamp hour battery, and it's amazing. I'll talk about it later on again. Then we've got the back. Now if you are in a classroom with people who knows nothing about smartphones, and you just purchased a new iPhone SE, you walk into class, let's just say this J1 2016 is iPhone SE, okay? You walk into the class and people was just be like, dude, what year are we living in? 2011? What's that? One camera? Versus, you walk into a class with this thing. Wow, amazing, you've got 3 cameras, that means you must take quality pictures, right? Oh, god dang it, you have all of us fooled because it's a mid-range camera again. So it's got a 5 megapixel depth on top, it's got a 25 megapixel main camera in the middle, like smack dab in the middle, and then it's got the 8 megapixel ultra wide camera on the bottom. And then flipping it to the front, aside from that infinity U notch that you will see, is a 16 megapixel front facing camera. More on the cameras later on, I just want to cover the hardware. And speaking of the front is covered by this very beautiful big fat Infinity V Super AMOLED display, which is a 1560 x 720p display. And what can I say, it's a 6.4 inch notched AMOLED phone, which is quite rare to see, at least on Samsung's catalog of phones nowadays. And what's hidden in front is the fact that it's got fingerprint unlock, which is pretty neat. For a mid-range phone. Now, back in the days, back in 2019, you see most of the mid-range phones having a fingerprint scanner smack dab in the middle of the back or maybe on the side. But this phone, because of its OLED technology, it managed to stuff this. And I'm assuming that the display quality itself is the reason why they managed to keep this phone's cost down while having the beautiful privilege to retain that fingerprint scanner. Again, more on the fingerprint scanner later. I have a lot of things to talk about this phone. And of course, we've got a sizable chin that can grow a beard the size of Eddie Rabbit's. I'm so sorry. And then of course, if you look down at the bottom, we've got the headphone jack and a USB Type-C port which supports OTG with a mono speaker setup and a microphone. On the top we get another microphone. On the side we get the volume buttons and the power buttons, and aside from the SD card, you can also install 2 SIMs for some variants of the phone. But hey, this phone is actually more of a tool than a S21. Let's get into the software side of things. Again, as I said, this thing started its life at Android 9 with One UI 1.5, around the same S10e software, you know, the S10 series software, and then it ended its support all the way up to Android 11. It does have some features castrated from the full One UI phones. Always on display is gone on this phone. Yes, you can't turn it on. You can't screen record, but that's common. I saw my friend's A70, he also can't screen record. It's pretty watered down, but it is like around a 95% of your full One UI 3.1 that you get on your S21 when it's new. At least it's not 3.1 core. This phone is a 4G phone. You can get VoLTE, but you can't get 5G. So your only perk for using this as a daily driver is you're really sure that you don't need this thing for like maybe a year or two before you switch to a newer phone. But yeah, I mean, if you are on a budget, you won't care about this, right? Don't you think it's wonderful? Like, take a look at this. Now I know, I am aware this is for Galaxy A50s bag, but look at that. Is the camera showing it? Ah, there you go. It's amazing. I love the diamond cut design from the 2019 era of A series phones. I don't know why they don't continue doing it. Yes, they do, but let's just say the designs of the A31, the A51, the A71 all look like gonna langgar by a car, gampui, you know, all that. The A90 was amazing also, but can we not talk about those phones right now because we're talking about the A30s. This is the start of the show. So usability wise, this phone is pretty good at things, sorry. It's not great at everything, but it is good at everything. So the thing about it is the camera still takes reasonable pictures. The ultra wide camera is grainy, yes, but hey, you've got an ultra wide camera, you can't complain. It's a good sensor. And then we've got a top one, which might as well just not exist. It's a 5 megapixel depth sensor. I know, I do believe they just want to write it. Oh, triple camera, amazing. But let's just say it does its job. Okay, it does its job. It takes detailed pictures. It takes details with the bokeh effect, which is neat, I guess. But I don't like the business model it's trying to do. If you want to give us a good, like, if you want to give us something to be really proud of our phones with, give us a proper 3 camera setup: telephoto, wide, and ultra wide. Just do that. Or if not, you can give us a really good dual setup like the S10e, ultra wide and a main. Now this is not as good as the S10e. I'm gonna say that first, but I would rather have 2 cameras than the third one that does jack all most of the time. So there you go. Then next up, of course, is the chipset. Now daily usability wise, this chipset is alright. It's got 6 cores clocked at 1.8 gigahertz and 2 cores clocked at 1.6. So normally gaming, I wouldn't recommend it. If you're gonna play Genshin Impact, you might as well just jump off the cliff with this phone, because this phone is not gonna survive any of it also. And if you play Absolute Racing, please keep your expectations realistic. This thing would never load on super high settings. Yeah, I've tried. If you play Subway Surfers and everything, that'll be just fine, of course. 2D games, I mentioned, this thing is more than capable of 2D games. One thing that I have to tell you is, if you edit videos on this phone, it can't do 60 frames per second. It actually can't show you 60 frames per second, because I believe the chipset is limited to that extent as well. But yeah, that's the performance side. And then we've got a screen which is 720p 6.4-inch Super AMOLED display with a pixel density of 268 pixels per inch. In short, this is not a sharp display, but remember how my first impressions of this was like, I almost mistaken it for a 1080p panel until I really look closely at the phone. So really, it's a really good 720p HD plus panel. If you look at what Samsung is pushing out right now, the LCD A13 5Gs with 720p TFT displays, this one's colors are popping. They are the best in class for 2019. And I mean, there is the Xiaomi Mi A3, which looks exactly like this phone, which also has a 720p OLED display. But I think when it comes to display wise, if you really want to go with a cheap mid-range phone with a OLED panel, Samsung is the best in class. So they are really at the best. They are really at the peak of display making. Then of course there is the unsightly chin, which is okay, because normally when I watch my videos, I just hold on to the chin like this, so you know, it doesn't drop. The phone doesn't drop. But right now it's a little bit inconvenient for me to hold it like this because I'm on camera. But yeah, otherwise it's a pretty fine phone. Maybe a little too large for me. It's the same size as the iPhone XS, yes. Now, I do speak positively about this phone, right? It's got a headphone jack, it's got USB Type-C connector, it's got your model, it's got everything that you want on your phone. It's a mini Note 10, but it's a Note 10 Lite, but without the part of wireless charging. But you know, you can just add in a module like this one, and it will charge flawlessly with the wireless charger. It's almost perfect, but there are some problems with this phone that I'm gonna talk about. Of course, it's not the battery life. This thing is a very good, has a very good endurance for this phone. I remember it took me 1.5 days consistently to try to kill this phone. And let's just say I've been trying to kill this phone, and obviously it didn't work. Try that on an S21, try that on any flagship phones, and you can kill it. Aside from the iPhone 13 Pro Max and 13 Pro. Let's talk about the bad parts. Number one, I do realize there are some stutters faced on this phone. I believe it's because of the 4 gigabytes of RAM and the use of eMMC for the storage part, which slows down the more you use the phone. Yeah, kind of slows down, yes, but mostly it's quite quick, so it kind of cancels out each other. It's not a quick phone to begin with, but it is also not a slow phone to begin with. Then next up, we've got the fact that it's the mono speaker setup. Now my S7 has a pretty amazing mono speaker setup to my but to many other reviewers it sucked. So you can see the direction where this is going, right? These are not great to my standards, and my standards literally holds in for the S7, and the S7 for other reviewer standards are not great. So if those are not great, these are mediocre. And yeah, I feel it. It's literally covered by a piece of flexible plastic just to produce a sound. Yeah, that thing. It's not even a sheet of metal which can dampen a sound, but it's a sheet of plastic flexible enough to make the whole thing sound robotic and teeny. So yeah, if only this thing has stereo speaker, which only came with the A52 and above. Then of we've got a serious talk when it comes to the fact that the screen, it may be a OLED, yes, it is beautiful, but do you know that, of course you do know, OLEDs are expensive, and the fact that Samsung's anti-consumer practice all lies in this piece of glass here and some hardware under here. So in order to get the fingerprint scanner working, you need the screen, right? It's an optical scanner. It knows exactly where your finger is and it knows how to scan for it. The thing is, the screen, the motherboard, and the in-display fingerprint scanner all work together as one. So that means if any one of these parts are replaced, that's what I found out, the fingerprint scanner will never work again. Now that is because of a software locked, and it can only be solved if you downgrade to Android 9. And here comes my other problem. Quite a long time ago, I believe 2 months ago, where I went in to try to get my fingerprint scanner re-enabled on this phone. Yes, the screen has been replaced on this phone. Samsung told me that it's the screen issue, and what I did was I swapped the motherboard around. The scanner worked perfectly. By the way, I'm okay with Samsung lying to me, but I'm not okay with Samsung lying to me, calling it a $200 repair for a software lock. I don't know what to say. Now Samsung recently has joined in the iFixit program, so that they can sell you the manuals and everything for you to repair your own phone. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to see if the A30s will get this part of it fixed. So just imagine in a few hundred years we'll be living on wastelands filled with these things because we don't have the space to recycle them. We don't have proper land to deal with this type of things properly. And then there's also one more interesting thing. This phone is on a moddable side. Surprisingly enough, though not as moddable as the Galaxy S7, you do know that the back plate of this phone can be used interchangeably with the A50s, the A30s, and if you try a little, maybe the A50, I'm not sure. Which is why there's the A50s back on my A30s. And if you are worried about case compatibility, no worries, all three models fit the same thing. I believe the A70 and the A70s also fit the same thing, so you don't have to worry about that. But overall, do I recommend this phone as sort of a temporary use phone or maybe as a daily driver? Definitely. If you can put up with the fact that this phone can get slightly on a slower side and the weaker screen, which I haven't talked about. The screen is actually quite weak. If this is a Gorilla Glass 3 front, one drop can end it all, and this is hard OLED. That means even if you don't end your Gorilla Glass 3, you might end up smashing the OLED itself, and that's just one crack to total the entire OLED, which of course brings me back to the point of Samsung's anti-repair mechanism. So really, if you can look past that those negative remarks that I can give to Samsung, I recommend this phone as a pretty good temporary, or in my case, a secondary phone to hold my secondary number. Yeah, it's a good phone. I do recommend it to people. Do get the 128 gigabyte one if you can find one. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe to TimeTech and TimeTech Plus. I'll be posting content, spam content on TimeTech Plus, and time and tech content on TimeTech, of course. Um, if you really enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, tell me why you didn't. Because you can't see the dislike count, right? You get it. So please do that, and please, if you don't like it also, or if you want, or if you see an area of improvement, my channel is community based. It's based on you guys to make it a better channel. So all you just need to do is to click on the link description below to Time Tech Improvement Program TIP, fill out the whole form, and I should get a notification coming from you about how you can make my channel a better place. This year I hope this year is easier for me, and I hope I could easily reach 200 subscribers by the end of this year. So, without further ado, actions speak louder than words. Subscribe. Yeah, go ahead, subscribe, give it a like and whatnot, and do your necessary things. And until then, I will see you guys on the next video on I don't know what. Right, bye.